Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Learn Linux TV. And also, welcome back to my brand new Netdata course. We are up to episode number 3, and this time around, it's all about the dashboard. In the previous video, we installed Netdata. We saw the entire installation process. In fact, I installed it on 3 demo machines. And that's what I recommend that you do as well. If you have the ability to set up some VMs, well, why don't you go ahead and do that? Because that way you could follow along with me as we go through the course. If you're not able to set up VMs, if you don't have that capability, don't worry about it. You could always take notes, but whenever possible, I highly recommend that you follow along. Anyway, in this video, like I mentioned, it's all about the dashboard. What we're going to do is learn more about the dashboard. We'll see the various tabs that are available, some of the metrics that we could see, and we're also going to look at fine-tuning the dashboard and drilling down into the information that's most important to us. So if you're ready to get started, well, I'm ready to get started, so let's get right into it. First, I wanted to recap one particular element. Whenever you install Netdata on a server, it'll open port 19999 on that server. Once it does that, you can open Netdata from a web browser by typing in either the domain name or the IP address for that instance, followed by a colon and then port 19999. And at this point in the series, keep in mind that each server has their own individual dashboards running locally. On my end, I have the Netdata dashboard open to each of my 3 servers in different browser tabs. This way, I could easily flip between them. Later in the course, we will combine these dashboards into one, but we're not there yet. Anyway, I recommend that you open up all of your Netdata dashboards within different browser tabs like I just did, and we'll be ready to start. When you first open a dashboard, you'll see a screen similar to this one. Now, this is just a summary page, and it does have a few useful tidbits of information, but it's just a tiny fraction of what Netdata offers. We also see a sign-in button right here, and that gives us the ability to sign into our Netdata Cloud account once we set that up. But for now, we're going to click the text at the bottom of the screen, this right here, to show the dashboard anonymously. In fact, I'll do that on each of my 3 servers. And as you can see, I have Netdata open in each of my browser tabs, and we're ready to go. Now we have the full dashboard, so let's take a look at it a bit more closely. One thing to note is that within Netdata, there's various tabs. For example, the Nodes tab, Metrics, Top, Logs, Dashboard, and so on. We'll be flipping through these tabs quite a bit within each dashboard. Note that I'm no longer talking about browser tabs, I'm referring to these individual sections right here within Netdata itself. And depending on what you want to do, you'll navigate to any one of these tabs. Some of them you'll use more frequently than others. Now keep in mind there are a few tabs that are limited to the cloud version of Netdata, such as the Home tab. And you can see the difference here. On the top of the screen right now, you'll see a row of tabs from a local Netdata console, and then on the bottom, you'll see what that looks like on the cloud version. But again, we'll see that later. For now, I'm going to go over the tabs that are visible within the local console, and then later I'll show you the others. First, let's click on the Nodes tab. On this tab, you'll see a short summary of some of the more noteworthy specs for this particular server. If you were to access this node through Netdata Cloud, which we'll see later on, you would see a list of all of your nodes here, but since we are accessing the web console for this particular server, we'll see just this one server for now. But already you can see some important metrics here. We have CPU, we have swap, disk reads, writes, top 15 processes, quite a bit of information that you'll find useful. And basically the way this works is if you're having any kind of problem with your server or you're just curious how it's running, you'll consult these graphs right here and see if any of them are going out of control. For example, if my CPU is spiking, I could click on that right here, and I get even more information. You can see that I get point-in-time information as well. You can see that the metrics change as I move my mouse. So this gives you the ability to access Netdata's per second metrics. Anyway, continuing, let's take a look at the Metrics tab. On this tab, you'll see even more information. For example, here's the CPU graph that I showed you earlier, but it's expanded and we can see the times down here at the bottom. We see steal, user, system usage percentage, I/O weight, Definitely some things that you might want to take a look at. We see load. We even see the clock status, which is pretty cool. This is especially useful if you are running syncing utilities and you want to make sure that your date and time is up to date. Available entropy, uptime. We see how much memory is available on the system, committed memory, and so on. Now notice right here, it says top nodes by least available memory. Now I only have one node right here, but this is another example of where we would see other nodes as well if we were using Netdata Cloud. Now before we go any further, you should be aware of an important feature straight away. On the top right corner of the screen, we could choose a specific time period. We can see that right here. So I'll click on that, and you can see that we could choose a date range for the metrics. So for example, if I wanted to see from the 15th through today, I'm recording this on April the 18th, I could select that date range and click Done. Now it's going to show me metrics for that particular date range. So I just wanted you to be aware that you could customize this, and I wanted you to know about it early on because it's definitely an important feature. If I wanted to show just the last 15 minutes, I could easily do that, as you can see right here. Click Done, and now I see the last 15 minutes of metrics. And selecting a date range is a great habit to get into because you might find yourself troubleshooting a past issue, such as a spike over the weekend, or perhaps you're curious how hard a server was working during a particular point in time. So just keep in mind you can customize the time period if you ever need to do so. Anyway, with that said, let's take a look at more of the graphs that we have available. And something that I want to show you right away is this right-hand column. There's different categories of specific metrics we can look at here. So for example, load. If you're curious about memory, we could click on that. And once you do that, you'll see various subcategories as well. So if you want to find out about swap, how's that going, for example, you can see how much swap usage you have going on here. For your storage, if your server is running slow, you might want to check I/O, perhaps latency, disk utilization. And I especially love the networking section here because it's important to understand how well your server is keeping up with traffic. And we have something right here for that. We have metrics for traffic. Now, obviously, this particular machine isn't going to see that much traffic. It's not a production machine. But if this was a production machine, you can get some information here about how well it's keeping up with traffic, which is always good to know. See information about the firewall, and so on. I can click System right here to go back to the main section. And this is going to give me an overview right here on this page. If I scroll down here, we'll see all kinds of information that's helpful to know about this particular server. As you can see, Netdata has a ton of information. I can keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. There's a crazy number of metrics that Netdata is able to keep track of, which is one of the reasons why this side panel is so helpful. So rather than scroll down through here to find what you're looking for, instead you could consult this section right here, look for the category that you're curious about, and then click on it, and that's all there is to it. Next, I want to spend a few minutes talking about anomalies. This is something that's going to come up throughout various times through this series, and I want to make sure you understand what this means. In fact, we have an anomaly section right here. But what exactly is an anomaly when it comes to Netdata? An anomaly is something that stands out, either a momentary increase in resource usage or maybe even a resource that's on the verge of maxing out. Sometimes an anomaly is actually expected. For example, let's say you have a server that's being used by your accounting team and most of the time it's relatively idle. However, maybe one day a report is being run by that particular team and during that time, you might see a spike in resource utilization while that occurs. In this case, the anomaly is expected. Sure, they might not run reports every day. Perhaps most of the time the server is idle, but as soon as they do run a report, you'll see that on the graph. And this is an example of an anomaly that's okay, it's expected. On the other hand, suppose you have a storage server and Netdata is reporting 90% disk usage. In that case, an anomaly like that means you should probably take action. Maybe you'll expand your storage or remove data that's no longer needed. In either case, it's up to you, the administrator, to decide on what is or is not worth taking action on. Also, it's important to keep in mind that Linux servers exist to do work. So regular resource usage, up to a certain point, is expected. Now, this might be confusing to some people, though, especially when it comes to stakeholders outside your IT department. If you're monitoring a server that's leased to someone else and it's always around 50% utilized, then that might mean that particular server is seeing regular usage. And regular usage is a good thing, especially if the server hosts a website that sells products online. In that case, regular usage means sales. However, if the server is showing more than 80% usage, then it might be time to upgrade that server and take action. For some, this might seem obvious, but it's important to underscore the fact that as an administrator, you'll be applying common sense to scenarios like those to determine when a server is simply doing work or when you might take action. For example, if a server is always around 0% utilized, then why are you paying for it? Servers have to have work to do, and if they have nothing to do, then it's not worth paying for. On the other hand, if it's seeing too much usage, that might represent a problem. Another consideration I want to touch on real quick is savings. Not necessarily resource savings, I'm actually talking about money. Using a tool like Netdata can help you save money if you're utilizing cloud servers. For example, say you have a server with 4 cores. When you check Netdata, perhaps you'll see that only a single core is being used at any given time. And that would mean you're overpaying for the server and you might want to downgrade it. By switching the instance to a dual-core configuration, you'd have the single core that represents the server's baseline, but you'd also have a second core for resource spikes. In that case, by downgrading the instance to avoid wasted resources, you'll end up saving money. In fact, I've seen companies save thousands of dollars a month by performing a resource audit just like that. But anyway, what does that have to do with Netdata? Well, a lot, actually. Whether an anomaly is expected or not, Netdata will help you pinpoint them. In fact, this solution actually uses machine learning models to automatically detect anomalies. And the great part about this is that other monitoring solutions often require you to choose the individual values manually within config files that represent areas of concern. Instead, Netdata does this for you. It's not that you can't tell Netdata what's important, it's just that Netdata already has a good idea of what's important and what's going on without requiring you to train it. And you could always adjust things later. Anyway, back to anomalies. Right here, we are on the Anomalies tab, so let's take a look at it. First of all, we have the anomaly rate. So if we wanted to find out how often an anomaly is happening, we could find that out right here. Scrolling down, we also have a count of anomalous metrics. Right now, 0 metrics on this particular host have any kind of anomaly. Do the same thing over here. Let's go to anomalies on my Debian server. Actually, see, we have a little bit going on right here. The anomaly percent, as you can see, is still under 0%. You'll see a change on the bottom left of this graph as I move my mouse left and right. And then on the Ubuntu server, you can see that we have a similar percentage for the anomaly rate. Here we have the variance in anomaly rate. Nothing that's going to stand out too much here or be any kind of concern. Again, these are just test instances. We also have anomaly events detected. We don't have anything right here right now. But what I recommend that you do is familiarize yourself with this tab right here and keep an eye on it. You never know when there might be something that you need to pay attention to. Now, we'll get back to taking a look at Netdata's dashboard shortly, but I wanted to spend some time going over Netdata Cloud a bit. Not just because I keep mentioning it, but also because some features are going to be limited to the cloud version, and I wanted to be sure to show you the other sections of the dashboard before I close out this video. First, you might be wondering how Netdata Cloud differs from viewing the Netdata console on an individual node. The main benefit for using Netdata Cloud is the ability to view metrics for all of your servers in one place. So far in this video, you saw me flip back and forth between my test instances, and while it's not necessarily a problem to use Netdata that way, it can get a bit overwhelming if you have hundreds of servers, in which case you'd have to keep hundreds of tabs open. Netdata solves this by providing an optional cloud dashboard, and what this does is pull everything together in one place. This means that from a single browser tab you can view all of your servers, and it also gives you the ability to create custom dashboards so you could create your own that contain the metrics and graphs that you care most about. One important thing to know about Netdata Cloud is that it is a paid service. While you can use Netdata individually on each of your servers without registering for an account, you'll need to at least be subscribed to Netdata's business plan to take advantage of Netdata Cloud. The pricing starts at $4.50 per month per server, and there's also an enterprise on-premise account available if you want to have a completely air-gapped Netdata solution that exists completely within your infrastructure. There is a free trial available if you want to use that to follow along, but keep in mind that if you don't cancel it before the trial expires, you'll be billed for each of the servers that you have it set up on. That said, let's take a look at Netdata Cloud. What I'll do right now is show you my actual account, the one I use for my business. I've been using Netdata for quite some time, and I love it. What I'll do right now is access Netdata Cloud. I'll simply navigate to netdata.cloud, and here it is. What I'm going to do is click the login button right here. I'll type in my email address. I'll click sign in. And at this point, what's going to happen is that it's going to send me an email. So what I'm going to do is grab that email. It's going to allow me to authorize the login process. So I grab the email and I grab the link from the email. I'm just going to paste it right here. Press enter. And there we go. Here is my actual Netdata Cloud account. You can see that I have 42 nodes that are set up on this cloud dashboard right here. Now, a lot of these are going to be nodes that I no longer use that will age out. I'm doing a massive reorganization when it comes to my network, and quite a few nodes were decommissioned because I checked Netdata, found out that they weren't being used, and I was able to consolidate my servers quite a bit. But you'll notice the difference right away when I click on the Nodes tab right here. Now keep in mind, if I click Nodes on this particular local dashboard right here, you can see that I only see metrics for that one server. But if I do the same thing in Netdata Cloud, for example, you can see information for quite a few different nodes here. Now, one thing to point out is that you won't see my 3 test instances in this cloud dashboard. When I said that this is my actual Netdata Cloud account, I wasn't kidding. So my test instances will not be located here. But if I wanted to view any metrics for those, I can do so through these tabs right here. But I wanted to show you what it looks like when you're actually using Netdata inside a company. So you'll see right here, I have a number of different nodes. So if I wanted to click on any of these to view metrics specific for that server, like my Alma Linux test instance, for example, I can see metrics right here for that particular server. It's going to bring me right to that section under the node section. Another example is my Proxmox server right here. So when I clicked on it, it brought me right to that space right here in this column. So you can think of this as an index on the right, and you also see my offline servers right here. These are servers that I've decommissioned. After some time, they will actually drop off of Netdata, and that'll automatically clean itself up. Right here, I have my Proxmox node. I actually reinstalled Proxmox. I had 2 nodes. We see them right here. And I reinstalled Proxmox on node number 1, and I found that all of my VMs run quite comfortably on that one server, which is why I have 1. But if I wanted to view metrics for past servers, I can actually go back and view information for those if I still have access to it. But right here in the top section, we have all the servers right here that are currently live. And I think it might be pretty cool to bring up my Proxmox node right here. In fact, I'll go to the Metrics tab. What I'm going to do is just filter the output here. So here we have a list of nodes. So what I'm going to do is select my Proxmox node. So basically what I did is I went over to this right-hand column. I went to Filters. Then under here we have Host Name. It's just one of the many ways that we could filter results. And what I want to do is view my Proxmox server, which is right here. So I'm going to select that one right here. And now we see output that's limited to my Proxmox server. We have the host name up here. So as you can see, we don't really have much in the way of CPU usage. I'm at the studio right now recording this video. I'm not at home using my server, so of course we're not going to see a whole lot going on here. But what's going to be interesting if we scroll down is some of the metrics that we'll see for this particular server. You see clock, load. In fact, I'll scroll down here. See information about virtual machines. There's all kinds of different things that we could choose. Going to reset everything here, which will go back to showing everything. But I wanted to show you a little bit about how you can narrow this down. Again, I went here to Filters, and I scroll down. I found my Proxmox server, which is this one right here. I clicked on it, and now I get all the information for that particular server. And the ability to access any one of my nodes from one dashboard is great. It's one of the best things about Netdata Cloud. Instead of going through each of these tabs individually to see metrics for these particular servers, remember, these test instances are not a part of Netdata Cloud. They're individual. But here, with Netdata Cloud, I see all the servers that I've associated with my account. So at this point, you've seen a real-life implementation in Netdata, but you might be wondering, how do you actually get a node to show up here in the first place? Well, the way it works is that you'll first sign up for a Netdata plan if you haven't already done so, and once you've done that, you can begin adding nodes to your account. And to show the process, what I'll do right now is add the 3 test instances I created for this course within my Netdata Cloud account. That way, you'll see the process within an actual implementation of adding a node, which will give you a good idea how the process plays out. So to set this up, what I'll do is go to the Nodes tab right here. And then right here, we have a button that says Add Nodes. What I'll do is click on that. I'm going to copy this command right here. And then I'll switch over to a terminal. And what I'm going to do right here is paste in that command. So I grab this command from my actual Netdata Cloud account, and I'm going to press Enter to begin the process of adding this to Netdata Cloud. I'll type Y and press Enter to confirm the changes. And that's it for the first server. And I'll switch back to my web browser. And check it out right here. We see Alma Linux. And this is my test instance. The same one that I set up in the previous video with a local dashboard. All I had to do was click Add Nodes, grab this command, paste it into the command prompt, and that was it. In fact, I'll just add the other ones as well. So I'll go back to my terminal, move over to Debian. I'll paste in the same command right here and press Enter. Press Enter to accept the default of Y. That one's done. Switch over to Ubuntu. I'll do the same thing. Press Enter. Enter again. And that should be it. Back here in Netdata Cloud, see Alma Linux. That was one that was added already. Might take a moment for it to show up here. And sometimes we'll have to restart Netdata if it doesn't already do that for us. Just refresh the page. We see Debian, we see Alma Linux. And here we see Ubuntu. So each of the 3 servers that we set up in the previous video are now a part of Netdata Cloud. Anyway, with that said, now you've seen the process of adding nodes to Netdata Cloud. For the rest of the video, I'm going to use Netdata Cloud. You could use your local dashboard to follow along if you need to do that. But what I want to do right now is check out custom dashboards. And to access that feature, what I'll do is click on Dashboards right here. And at first, there's nothing here at all. And that's because we haven't set up anything yet. At first, there's nothing here by default. Netdata is going to need you to add information to this particular section, but this is how you create a custom dashboard. So that way you could have a dashboard that contains all the metrics that are the most important for you in particular. Now, if we were to look at this particular section on one of the nodes and click Dashboard right here, so there is going to be a little bit of a difference between the two, and keep in mind a local dashboard is only going to be for this local server. Each one of these has their own dashboards, but what I want to do is set it up in Netdata Cloud so that way I could benefit from having access to all of my servers. Anyway, what I'll do right now is click the plus icon right here to create a new dashboard. I'll give it a sample name, and then click Add. And right here, I have my dashboard. And now that we have this dashboard, what I'll do is begin customizing it. So I'll click Add Chart. I'm going to choose which node I want to show up here. I'll start with Alma Linux. I'm going to randomly choose CPU utilization for applications. I'm going to add that one. I'll add another chart. And this time, I'll add the Debian node. I'll choose the same metric. Add that. And I'll also add a third chart, you guessed it, this time for Ubuntu, which is right here, the last of our test instances. I'll add the same metric again and click Add. Now, obviously, you could choose whatever metrics are important to you, but I wanted to give you an example of creating a custom dashboard. You could fill this dashboard with whatever information is important to you on whichever servers are the most important to you. And then once you set it up, you'll have this custom dashboard right here that you could view with that particular information. Once we're done, we'll click Save. And that should be all there is to it. Now what I want to do is show you the Alerts tab. I'll click on it right here. And right now I have no active alerts at all. Now, if there was something here that I needed to pay attention to, then it would show me information about anything that's important. Now, if I click on the Running tab, we could see all kinds of different metrics across my network. Things that might be important, things that I might want to take a look at. Right now, nothing is alerting, but I wanted you to be aware of the Alerting tab because that's where you'll go to find out if there's anything in particular you need to be concerned about. And this is another feature that will be different when you compare the local dashboard to the cloud dashboard. Here I can see alerts across my entire infrastructure. However, if I was to go to one of these other nodes right here, I'll just randomly pick this one and click the Alerts tab, then I'm going to be seeing alerts specific for this server. Same with this one and this one. Keep in mind, the difference with Netdata Cloud is that it pulls in information from all of your servers all in one place. But either way, you still have access to this Alerts tab per node if you need to, or Cloud if you have access to that. Before I close out the video, I wanted to show you one more feature, integrations. In fact, here it is right here. So I'll click on it, and you'll see all kinds of different things that you can integrate with Netdata. So here we have different operating systems. We also have Kubernetes, blockchain servers, gaming. There's all kinds of things that you can integrate with your particular account, even macOS systems if you have any. So here, as you can see, there's a community integration that will enable you to get access to Apple Time Machine metrics. So if you have any MacBooks within your network, that might be something that you want to pay attention to. Now, it's impossible for me to cover each of these, and whether or not any of these might be useful to you depends on what you might be running within your infrastructure. You'll see that there's a bunch available here. You'll see the categories here on the left, and what I suggest you do is take a look through these and find out if there's any that you might benefit from. You can let me know in the comments what your favorite integrations happen to be, and let me know if any of these are some that you use within your particular network. And there's our episode. That about does it for episode number 3 of my Netdata course. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, then definitely click the like button to let YouTube know. That way we'll see more Linux-related content here on YouTube. I would really appreciate that. Anyway, this episode was all about the dashboard, so make sure you understand, well, the dashboard. You can have a click around, you can check out the integrations, customize the time periods, set up custom graphs. Just make sure you fully understand what we've learned in this episode before you move on to the next one. And then when you're ready, I'll meet you over in that episode as soon as it's uploaded if it hasn't been already. Again, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.